it is really valuable to have someone who has direct contact with the customers, also involved in building the product. And so that's kind of what led me to be in a more technical role and to eventually have a team of engineers on my own.
Jennifer, Richard, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being here. You started off being an English major. Somehow you find your way into tech, but not just tech. You're going across being a founding member of a few different ventures, venture-backed ventures, and then climbing into the VC space at the second fund, I believe, that you're at now. And now you're a principal at Bonfire Ventures, leading seed stage rounds. Tell me a little bit about your background and how do you transition from an English major to doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it was just some opportunistic moves and a little bit of luck. But I have always enjoyed writing. When I went to college, I knew that I wanted to pursue English and was thinking about maybe going into law after that. I quickly realized after taking a couple of law classes that that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I ended up graduating and just not having any idea. And it was also during the last financial crash. So not a lot of opportunities in terms of jobs. So I ended up moving into entertainment, working at CAA, which is one of the world's biggest talent agencies. Was there for about 3 years, went through the trainee program there. And in that time, we represented people like Eric Ries, Gary Vaynerchuk, and several other just huge entrepreneurs. And what they were doing seemed a lot more interesting than what I was doing. And I saw there was a blossoming tech ecosystem happening in LA. And so I decided to take the leap. Joined a startup, just scaling customer support at first. After a couple of months, that company was acquired and I got to move into a more technical role at the Founders Next Pivot. And so from there, that's kind of what started just my career in tech, building companies, selling them, building, and eventually I decided that, what our investors were doing also seemed really interesting and went to school to ultimately move into VC, and that's how I made my way where I am right now.
Right. So you're doing your MBA in Berkeley with the hope to make it into the VC space. What was it about the VC space that really resonated with you, that you felt compelling for you to go and work there?
Yeah. So I think there were a couple of things. The biggest one was that I worked at a couple of different startups, and like most startups, there were some issues with our culture and, issues with diversity. And I realized how hard it is to make the change from within the company. It really was our investors who had the most power and the people who are deploying the capital who have the most influence on what the ecosystem looks like, literally. And so I think that was my biggest motivating factor to get into VC, was to be able to influence, who's getting money, what kind of responsibilities they have, holding founders accountable, and also just being able to, support this ecosystem I love without being siloed into one company and always working on one specific problem. And so I think that, the blend of those two things is what makes VC a perfect fit for me. And ever since I moved in a few years ago, I just love it.
I love that. So take me back a little bit to this transition in your career. Growing up, did you imagine that you'll go into tech, that you'll be, an investor at a VC fund, especially this young?
No, absolutely not. I didn't even know what tech and VC was when I was growing up. I'm first generation college, and
Wow.
just a lot of the things that I'm doing now, I just had no exposure to when I was a kid. And so when I was growing up, the things I thought of were the very traditional doctor, lawyer, um, those kinds of career paths. I just didn't even know that this one was an option.
Wow. So and what really was it that made that switch? So you mentioned that you were part of a company that got acquired, that and then you transitioned into a more techie role, but it sounds like that it there's a little bit more meat there in terms of the thought process of making that transition. What was that like, and what were some of the things that perhaps either surprised you or disappointed you in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, so probably in elementary school, middle school, I taught myself how to code. And so that is definitely what influenced me to get into a more technical role while I was in startups. And, I think so. I was running customer support at this first company, at this first startup I was at. And what was so interesting to me was that we were getting in so many different, valuable pieces of insight from our customers, but there wasn't really a established communication channel between support and the engineers who were, building out our product. And so I was constantly, pinging the engineers, telling them we've gotten this feedback from our customers. I think we should make this change on the site. And
Interesting.
at first, I got some pushback, as I think support managers often do. Excuse me. But eventually, our CTO and our engineering team realized, this is affecting our bottom line. And so it is really valuable to have someone who has direct contact with the customers, also involved in building the product. And so that's kind of what led me to be in a more technical role and to eventually have a team of engineers on my own.
Unbelievable. And what were some of the most exciting things about being a founding member of a few venture-backed companies? What were some of the highlights, perhaps for people that aren't from tech or aren't from, the VC scene, that they're curious to hear about that founding member experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest is, starting from absolutely nothing and just having this idea of a product and then launching our MVP and just, knowing that it could be so much better, but just having a super crappy product. And then just being able to constantly see this evolution and being in rooms where, you can take one path or another and weighing out the pros and cons and then executing on these different, on these different decisions and just seeing the way that it impacts the company. I think that, of course, the biggest, the most memorable moment was finding out that we were being acquired and just seeing, years of work turn into something big. And so, I think that there's so many highs and lows in building a company, and it requires so much teamwork and camaraderie. And the people that I worked with at those startups are still some of my closest friends. And so just being in the trenches with a team of people and having a singular vision and getting it done, it was just incredible.
Right. Which aspects of the entrepreneurial experience do you take with you in your role as principal at VC funds?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting that VC funds are very small typically. And so there is a very similar feeling of, wearing several different hats. Like, for instance, at Bonfire, I'm sourcing investments, I'm doing diligence, but I'm also doing marketing for the firm and helping with strategy. And so there's no responsibility that's too big or too small. And that's very similar to the mentality you have to have working in a startup or starting an early stage company, because I can empathize with our founders very much, because it's a lot of us just doing everything and trying to pull things together to make this thing work. And we have a similar feeling of grittiness and yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of my answer.
So tell me a little bit about your perspective in the VC space, whether it's sourcing deals or doing due diligence. What are some of the things that you're particularly looking for, as either you're looking for an interesting company to source and to communicate with, or in the due diligence process as a possible investment opportunity?
Yeah, so I think that question is twofold, because I'm always looking for the right company and product market fit and growing market. And, so the right opportunity from the company perspective and the product perspective, as well as the right teams to support. And I think that the teams are really important, because going back to, what I said previously about having this responsibility to impact culture and the landscape and who's getting capital. I want to invest in good people and people who are strong leaders and who want to empower their teams and have diverse companies. And so I think that's one. And then on the other side, I want to invest in products that are going to change the world. If I would have been in VC back when, investors were writing checks into Uber's seed round or Airbnb, and just being able to invest in companies that fundamentally change the way that people work and operate is always the ultimate goal. And so any type of company that is, impacting a large growing market and is providing a software solution to help people, work more efficiently, live more efficiently, that's something I'm really interested in.
Right. Do you feel there's enough fair access for people that don't come from the tech world into the tech world? And I'm asking this because, it seems that there, especially 2020 has shown us that, diversity and inclusion is still an issue everywhere in the world, also in the US. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is the opportunities that are presented and breaking the cycles. And you're mentioning that you're a first generation college student and you didn't even think about, going into tech, let alone be a VC. And one of the things that I've been curious and challenging my thought process with is what are some things that really should happen in order for this industry to become more accessible, whether it's through training or through job opportunities or entry positions to get people into the hooks. Because you mentioned that one of the things that got you in there was a position that you transferred to once you were already sort of half a leg into this. So I'd love to hear your perspective and what you think we could improve on or we could do.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there's several angles with which we have to tackle this problem. I mean, a big one is having more diverse check writers, which, is a big topic of conversation right now. Another one is increasing the access to STEM programs in schools that, house minority students, which tend to be completely underfunded. But I think that the biggest issue right now is that, once these underrepresented founders, investors, et cetera, actually get into a VC fund or get into a startup, those environments aren't inclusive. And so many of them end up leaving and taking a different career path. And so I think that so much of this needs to happen at the personal level for leaders of these funds and companies to do the personal work of understanding empathy, understanding what it means to have an inclusive culture, And that work is really tough. And a lot of people are afraid of it. A lot of people avoid it. But I think
Right.
that's what needs to happen for us to turn the needle, move the needle,
Right. So
rather.
how do you break that cycle then? Because you're like you're mentioning, a lot of people are afraid of it. A lot of people don't even know where to start. It's a taboo subject in a lot of in a lot of people's minds, and it's like a chicken and the egg. You need to have diversity in order for it to become less of a taboo subject, but you don't have the diversity because it is a taboo subject. So how do you think we can potentially start moving the needle in the right direction? Perhaps it's just a generational thing, and the new generation of perhaps entrepreneurs are growing up in a more diverse world. But what do you think could happen already right now? As somebody who's leading investments, who's helping promote certain companies, what do you think should happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm seeing a huge surge in companies that are hiring consultants, for instance, to
Mm,
to do, the introspective work with companies and teams. I think that there needs to be more coaching for executives. And I think that so much of it needs to start at the executive level, individually, so that people can ask the questions that they're afraid to ask in front of a group of people. And, they can get down to the deeper issues of leadership without bringing the whole company in. And then I do think that this needs to be an exercise across companies. And I think
right.
there's a feeling that, diversity is a political issue, or that, these types of talks don't belong in the workplace. And until we get over that, we're never going to be able to talk about it. And so I
A
think
hundred
that people
percent.
need to work on themselves on an individual level, and then be willing and courageous enough to have these talks as a team.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Jennifer. What does it mean
Of
to be
course.
a connoisseur of natural and biodynamic wines? What is that, and how do you even get that as a passion?
Yeah, so I actually started drinking natural wines with my friends maybe about a year ago, and that has
What does that mean,
definitely
natural? What's a natural wine? Am I not drinking natural wine?
I don't know. Probably not, though. So natural and biodynamic wines, they're wines that are created through processes of very minimal intervention. And so they're typically used with organic grapes, but organic and natural wines are not the same. It's more
Mm-hmm.
about the process. So minimal sulfites, just minimal chemicals, minimal intervention at all in making them. And they're very good. For many people, it's an acquired taste, but it's just a cleaner drink. You're not hungover the next day, and they're really delicious and tend to be coming from small local farmers, much more sustainable farming in general, and so better for the environment as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. And so what is actually happening with the wine market today, and why is this not a common thing? Is it mainly pricing, mainly the market?
So I think it's actually becoming more and more common. And if you look in your city, you will probably find several natural winemakers. I think or sorry, several shops that carry natural wines. I think the biggest thing
Right.
is that the traditional winemakers so they're the incumbents. It's kind of like in tech, and they have all the money and all the power, and they're seeing the uprise of this new natural wine movement, and I are against it and typically trying to crush it. And so I think that it's just a matter of, these smaller growers, these smaller shops, um, doing more marketing and figuring out a way to convince people that what they've been doing for all of this time is not necessarily the best. And there's an alternative that they can get for a slightly higher price point. It is a little bit more expensive depending on what you're drinking.
100%. That's very, very interesting, and I'm gonna have to check it out a little bit more, because I had no idea that this is even a market, or that I'm not drinking natural wine. I thought that when I was drinking wine, I was drinking something very natural, and I feel almost cheated right now. So I'm gonna have to work that with myself later. But Jennifer, before we leave, I have to ask you also about your passion for e-commerce, because we didn't get to talk about that yet, but that is something that you've been deeply involved with the different companies, and you mentioned that it's a personal interest of yours. Give me a little bit of brief about e-commerce and why that is something that you're so excited about.
Yeah, so I think it starts with my experience working in startups. So the companies that I was at, one of them was pure play D2C e-commerce, and then the other two were, ad tech or crowdfunding, but had an e-commerce element. And so all of my professional tech career has been in e-commerce through some form. And at the most recent company, Pop and Suki, I was actually employee number 2, built e-commerce from the ground up, from literally nothing. And so I just understand that pain point so deeply of, internationalization or logistics and drop shipping, conversion and mobile commerce and trying to optimize. And so it's just something that I know a lot about. And I think as an investor, you tend to gravitate towards problems and solutions that you understand, because at the end of the day, you're taking a bet, and you want to take a bet with on companies for which you have the most possible context and information. And so that is definitely why I gravitate. And also as a consumer, I love online shopping. I'm constantly on different e-commerce websites, shopping, checking them out, seeing what platform they're using, how their site's set up. And so it's just a natural passion at the end of the day.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Jennifer. Before we leave, I want to thank you for being generous with your time. This was really, really great, and I loved hearing about your journey, your interests, your take on how we can improve the tech scene today in the industry as a whole, and lastly, discovering that I've been cheated with my wine drinking. So thank you for that. But Jennifer, before we leave, I have to ask you for 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Ooh. I would say the 3 words are adventurous, sarcastic, and curious.
I love that. Jennifer, thank you very, very much. This was really, really great. And stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Appreciate it. And happy holidays.
Happy holidays.